And now we come to Wolverine. In the words of the late, great John Holmes, this is a hard one.
Whatever the reason is you're doing this, focus on that. Maybe it will help.
The question is, can I watch Wolverine if I've not seen any of the other X-Men series? Well, you can do what you like. I'm not going to tell you what to do. However, it would make a lot more sense if you have. And if you haven't seen them, then you'll be spending your time far more wisely watching them instead. But I'm going to assume that anyone who has any intent on watching this film will already be familiar with the original franchise and be fully aware that the titular character of this film is a mutant with a rather nifty kitchen knife embedded in his knuckles, which make sporadic appearances at convenient moments. Also to note is Wolverine's canny knack of being able to self-heal in a matter of moments, making him pretty much indestructible and a very rare visitor to the NHS. The film clumsily tries to explain the origins of James Logan, aka Wolverine, which was, rather wisely, only ever briefly referred to in the original X-Men saga. And in doing so, creates a fairly bland, hole-ridden plot that reminded me somewhat of this cheese. The characters are never really developed and only there for contrite reasons, and the main plot, Wolverine's blood feud with his brother, the equally blessed Victor Creed or Sabretooth, seems totally wasted.
Ooh, shiny.
But all of this is to be expected. Rumour on the grapevine is that Fox won't be pushing this for any Oscars next year. Because it is what it is, mindless fun, not without any positives. Liev Schreiber puts in a commendable and enjoyable performance as Sabretooth. Danny Huston, unfortunately, seems to be playing it by numbers and doesn't have nearly as much fun with the role as Brian Cox did when he made the role his own in X-Men 2. And Hugh Jackman is, well, typically Hugh Jackman, who I would like to compare to an onion ring. Never going to be part of an exquisite meal, but if you're looking for a filling, stodgy dish, is the perfect accompaniment. As a side note, it's also worth noting that Wolverine doesn't at any point break into a song and dance routine with Anne Hathaway, which came as a big relief.
We can't just let you walk away.
All I can say is that Wolverine will be out on the 29th of April, and me and the cheese agree that it is better than Australia, although we didn't even bother seeing that.
Trust me, I've been through worse.
You've heard our verdicts on the mainstream output, now we bring you our independent film of the month. Bad Day is a British crime thriller that boasts strong performances and raw authenticity. Indeed, you could, like me, be forgiven for confusing this with a bigger budget Hollywood production. Centred around a minicab firm with a sinister sideline in gun-running, drug-dealing and murder, and the police officers that will stop at nothing to catch them, this is by turn brutal and thrilling. But such is the nature of the twist-laden plot, you will not want to know any more than this to ensure you get maximum pleasure from it. Separating Bad Day from other films of its ilk is the abject refusal to patronise female characters. The two leads, a typically excellent Claire Goose and Donna Eyre, are flawed yet relatable women, and the frequent bouts of girl-on-girl violence distinguish this from the misogynistic world of Guy Ritchie and his type. This is also the film debut of Girls Aloud's Sarah Harding, who gives a surprisingly convincing performance as a foul-mouthed gangster's moll. Eschewing cliché and formula in favour of twists and surprises, this is one of the most superior Britcop thrillers in recent memory. Brutal, gripping, sporadically amusing, this is one Bad Day you'll be keen to endure again and again.
You have no fucking idea who you're
Oh, fuck you up! Further, you know fucking wallet. Nah! Harry McCann. Hey, what? You the brother that makes some pieces there?
That's McCain's.
Fuck up! Say goodbye to your piece, you fucker! Ah!
One of the things that has always captivated me about Hollywood is not just the movies themselves, but the people behind those movies. Quite often their lives were just as exciting, dramatic and far-fetched as the stories they peddled. So it comes as no surprise then that Hollywood quite often has held up a mirror to itself to celebrate that fact. Movies like The Player, Swimming with Sharks and Hollywoodland, to name but a few. It seems to me the first half-century of cinema's life was its most exciting and misbehaved. Take the 1941 Academy Awards, for example. Citizen Kane, one of the most revered films in cinema history, was booed every time one of its 9 nominations was read out. Can you imagine that happening now? It just wouldn't. I mean, it probably should, but it just wouldn't. The only way you can get a genuine emotional reaction from the Hollywood elite nowadays is if you got Michael Moore on stage and got him to take a giant dump inside one of their $65,000 Gucci gift bags. Doesn't it seem like Hollywood's lost its edge and personality now? Everything seems so sanitised, wrapped up in a PR bubble with publicists making sure that dirty linen isn't washed in public, and the few genuine bad boys that are left looked down upon by a tutting, self-appointed moralistic guardian in the shape of the press. I mean, what the hell happened to Sean Penn? And that's a shame. It really is. I mean, just think in 20 or 30 years' time when people say, what was it like working on the set of Lord of the Rings? They'll go, great, had a wonderful time. Peter Jackson, really nice bloke. How boring is that? But thankfully, we do have a few gems left, such as love him or hate him, James Cameron. Take The Abyss, for example. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio suffered a physical and emotional breakdown. She was pushed so far by Cameron. A Fox executive was literally bullied off the set, and Ed Harris had to pull over his car when driving home one night after he burst into tears. Think about it. How hard must James Cameron be to make Ed Harris cry? James Cameron is now a rare breed, but back in the early days, Hollywood was filled with these kind of characters, and it's one in particular I want to talk about. One of the greats and one of the first, Cecil B. DeMille. Born in 1881, Cecil first came to prominence as the director of Hollywood's very first feature-length film, The Squaw Man, a film he actually shot 2 more times over the next 25 years. He is, of course, famous for having directed some of the most enduring films in Hollywood history, King of Kings, 10 Commandments, and The Greatest Show on Earth. But it's his mythic persona that has created such an iconic legacy. Life on one of his film sets was not a walk in the park. He was notoriously difficult to work with, and probably would have made life on a James Cameron set feel like a holiday in the sun. Cecil, who wanted to fight in the Spanish Civil War, but wasn't allowed to on account of his age, despised actors unwilling to perform dangerous stunts. Indeed, on the set of Samson and Delilah, he called Victor Mature 100% yellow purely because he wasn't willing to wrestle a lion. On the set of The Crusades, DeMille was, yet again, barking orders at a group of stuntmen, when one of them lost his temper and fired an arrow, missing DeMille's head by inches, but pinning his megaphone to the wall. For the rest of the shoot, DeMille didn't bark any orders at stuntmen. This is what it took to earn the man's respect and get him off your back. One of the most infamous Cecil stories, and my personal favourite, concerns a battle scene he was filming in the Californian Valley. It was due to be the biggest battle scene of all time. He had thousands of extras, he had horses, he had pyrotechnics. It was going to be magical. Cecil knew he had one chance to get this right, so he strategically placed 4 cameras around the perimeter. He yelled action. The scene went off perfectly. Pyrotechnics went off, explosions in the buildings collapsed, extras ran firing guns, horses galloped. It was amazing. Cecil knew he had the scene of his life in the bag. He was over the moon. But then a nervous AD approached and said, Cecil, I've got a bit of bad news for you. It appears the film in camera 1 has broken. And when one of the horses was galloping past camera 2, it sprayed mud all over the lens. And when one of the towers exploded, it landed directly on top of camera 3. At first, Cecil was distraught. Oh my God, but then he remembered. He still had camera 4, which was a wide shot, so would have captured the entire glorious scene. So he shouted up to the cameraman, hey, everything all right on camera 4? To which the cameraman responded, yep, ready to go when you are, Cecil. While filming the 10 Commandments, the 73-year-old suffered a near-fatal heart attack. Despite doctors' orders, he was back filming within a week. A few years later, at the age of 77, he died tragically of heart failure. At the time, he was in negotiations to direct Ben-Hur. Just imagine what the great man could have done with that. Characters like Cecil may be a rarity these days, and although I love hearing their tyrannical stories, I fear I may contradict myself here, for although I yearn for the return of the aggressive, arrogant likes of DeMille, I'll be really pissed off if in 20 years' time that fucker Guy Ritchie's ever remembered in the same way.